Don Global presents the DG Recruit podcast on everything headhunting and recruitment. Achieve the life and career you envision. What's up, game changers? It's your host, Don, founder of Don Global, the headhunting and career coaching company helping you achieve the life and career you envision. In today's DG Recruit podcast, I'm going to cover the 6 C's deal killers as it relates to making placements. The first one is something that many recruiters are trained on, which is counteroffers. So in classic recruitment training, every single recruiter goes through hey, make sure your candidate is not going to get snatched off by a counteroffer. A counteroffer is when your candidate goes to resign with the beautiful job that you just procured them, and their boss goes, hey, candidate, we don't want to lose you. Here's another $30,000. Do you want to stay now? Faced with that kind of mouth-watering money, most candidates will elect to stay. And this is very typical in markets that are very candidate dry, where you will see counter offers happen. It's very common. It should go into your absolute day-to-day candidate prep from, I say, as early as initial intake call. That is how early I personally do counter offer discussions, is the first call. I don't wait till we're mid-process. I don't wait till the offer is released. I cover counter offer on the first call. And the reason is because I've always operated in candidate tight markets, AKA there aren't enough people doing the job, which then requires a headhunter to be engaged in order to fulfill the rec. Right? To fill the rec. So you can always automatically assume by default that your candidate is going to be counteroffered, because what kind of crazy company will want to spend a recruitment fee to backfill? Why would anybody be incentivized to do so if they have a perfectly fine working person in their midst currently? Right? And a good enough candidate that you're going to place is going to be absolutely desirable enough to be maintained in their current role, right? So I think that a big part of counteroffer prep is on that initial intake call, where you talk to the candidate and you educate them. So this is what I call the education process. The first call is so much education, is you're telling and you're training and you're educating your candidate on what makes sense, on what's going on, and what they need to watch out for. So the counteroffer prep sounds like this. Hey, candidate, I'm enjoying this conversation so far. You seem like an awesome person. I can absolutely guarantee you that if you're going to leave your current job, if I place you anywhere, you're probably going to be counter offered by maybe anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000. How would you feel if that were to be the case? Gauge how they would feel. They will be shocked. 9 times out of 10, candidates are like, I didn't even think of that. I didn't even put that into context. I didn't even prepare for that kind of scenario. They have not prepared for it, so that when it does fall into their lap, they're shocked, and everyone's initial knee gut reaction is to accept it, because it's the devil that you do know, right? Like, why would I say no to $50,000? Why would I say no to $30,000? I'd 100% take the money. Like, why the heck not? Right? Like, most people will just opt for the safe route, which is like, I'll just deal with it. Whatever BS that work is not perfect. Who cares? I now have an extra $30,000 in my pocket. So put that into context for them on that initial intake call and continue bringing it up. Every single deal killer I talk about today will not make sense if you addressed it on the first call and forgot to do it on the second call, third call, fourth call, fifth call, sixth call, seventh call. You need to do every single deal killer. Every single deal killer needs to be addressed in every single catch-up call that you have with the candidate, because you cannot accept the fact that nothing has changed. You need to remind them over and over about every single deal killer that we're covering today. So that's the first C, counteroffer. Cover it on the initial call, get very granular with it, assess how they feel, assess how big of a difference that would make into their lives. Even lead them. I always lead them. Hey, look, if someone's going to give me an extra $50,000, I'm sorry, I'm going to stay. Right. And I personally have taken a counter offer even at $0 extra. Seriously, I did, because I'm an idiot. So I took a counter offer, and I usually give that example.
I'm like, these are the reasons why I took the counter offer. It wasn't even financially motivated, right? So I think every single person has a different reason why they're taking a counter offer, right? Mine was because I was dating a guy at the time and I didn't want to move anymore. And that was relatively new because like I just started dating him, right? Another story is that he dumped me after I took the counter offer, but that's a different story for a different day, right? So again, the counter offer is something that everyone's might be susceptible to depending on what the levers are that their firm is using against them to make them stay by using those levers, right? Make sure you find out what those levers are on that first call where they're less guarded, where it's more exploratory, and they're not going to hide it from you, let's say at the closing table. Because that is something that will happen. They will do anything to get an offer so that they can shop it to their boss. That has happened before. Don't be the chump that falls for that. I'm happy to report I'm rarely the chump, although I have been the chump. Number 2, competing offer. This is the second most common deal killer. Competing offer. This candidate, assuming they're desirable, is going to be offered by other companies directly or by another recruiter who is trying to place them for a fee. This is also going to happen, right? Another company or recruiter is going to be trying to get the candidate placed right around the time you're trying to do it. Likely the candidate has now become open-minded and wants to look at multiple jobs, and they're now responding to messages on LinkedIn. This is a candidate control issue. And again, this is the issue when you don't control things from the initial call. At the start of the initial engagement with the candidate, I always ask the candidate, where else are you interviewing at? Not only do I ask them that, I give them about 4 to 5 explainers, taking up about 2 to 3 minutes, explaining to them why it is critical that they don't hide information from me. I have a whole slew of reasoning why I tell them that I need to know what other companies they're interviewing at. Every recruiter should have like 20 reasons why that is something they must know. Not just, oh, it would be helpful to know. No, there's like actual tangible reasons why I need to know where else you're interviewing at, what other companies you're talking to, what other recruiters you're working with. I'd like to know. And I have a whole slew of reasons why I want to know. So then you need to convince them to tell you this information. Because if you don't know it heading into the engagement with the candidate, then you are potentially wasting a lot of your time and the time of your clients, and to be one of the many offers that they're going to use to shop around to other people, right? Like that's just not fair. Like, so a big solution to the competing offer situation that I think every person should keep in mind is passivity, right? We always work with passive candidates. This is why I don't work with people that are unemployed and have been looking for a job for 6 months. Like I do not want to work with that candidate 99 times out of 100 times. Very rarely do I even take or consider working with a candidate that is unemployed. And that has to be a special reason why they haven't been snatched up yet. Again, we're talking about candidate dry markets where good candidates should be snatched off the market in a minute. So it's odd that they're not being snatched off. And we need to look at why they're not being snatched off. So competing offers usually could be addressed by just working with passive candidates. Likely you're the first recruiter on the scene and you can do what's I call pitch them an exclusive arrangement, right? You're pitching them on total exclusivity. Is that I'm the headhunter that's taking time out of my day, do your resume for free, train you up on interviews, literally do everything but wipe your bum for you. Like the least you can offer me is exclusivity. That's like the least you can offer me, right? So you must make sure to be fair to me, right? Be fair. You have to be extremely fair so that I can like understand that I'm not wasting my time with you. And that's not like me going out of my way being an a-hole. It's called me doing right by myself and by you, right? How can I give my candidates 100% of my attention if they are not reciprocating, right? You get what you give. So if you want 100% of my attention, you need to pay attention to our processes and the clients that I have representing for you. And another critical element of why so many recruiters can't work exclusively with candidates is that they're not optimized. They're not niche enough. So it's like ad hoc. I got one random ass job for you. That's not good enough to maintain a candidate's exclusivity. You need to have 8 jobs for them. When you have 8 jobs for one candidate, they're likely to work exclusively for you because they're like, oh my God, Like, that's so much activity. I'd love to go through one person for it all. Why would I want to talk to 8 different recruiters for 8 different jobs if I can do it all through you, who I highly trust and feel that totally understands what I'm looking for and is training me up on literally everything I need to know about how to hack it. And then you're helping me negotiate offers, pinging these opportunities off each other. That's awesome. Like, I want you to do that, right? Like, isn't that amazing if you could find a headhunter that could literally just do everything for you and like save you the time of interfacing with like 20 different vendors? Yeah, most people want that, but most recruiters are not optimized to provide that. And that's the issue with how they run their recruitment business. So that's kind of how you address competing offer is through exclusivity, working with passive candidates, and in the rare occasions that you work with candidates that are on the open market, talking to other recruiters and other companies directly, they still need to be upfront with you and be very forthcoming with every step of the process every time you talk to them, which is why I said earlier, repetition is your best friend. Repeat, repeat, repeat. The third C that I call, this one's a funny one, changing mind. That's the third C. Candidates and clients changing their mind, right? This is a huge problem. And this is something that is hard to really control, right? You can get really good at this game where you're good at controlling it like 80% of the time, but you're never going to get it 100% of the time because people change their minds. Clients are the harder one to pinpoint on this because a client, especially if you're working with them on contingent, they're just kind of like no skin in the game. They can just keep looking at your candidates and lead you on. They can do that. But you as the recruiter, after it happens once to you, you should call them out. After a client does it just once to you, and how can you tell when a client is starting to change their mind and start being like wasting your time? Because this is what happens, right? I really need to hire. Okay, fine. Start sending me candidates. Let's sign your agreement. Let's work together. Yay. Let's like partner. 2 weeks into it, all of a sudden, that urgency, that desire, that commitment has fallen by the wayside. Why is that? What happened? Easy way to tell. When you submit a candidate, the client all of a sudden has a lot to nitpick about it. Oh, I don't like this. I'm not really a fan of that. I don't really. Well, or they don't even get back to you in a reasonable time frame. I'm talking 24 to 48 hours. Urgent hires that are serious about hiring, urgent needs, you'll get a hear back within one day, within one business day of submit. You will get feedback. That is an urgent rec. Not urgent rec looks like a week later. Okay, I'm just getting to this without being on vacation, obviously, assuming your candidate is good enough. Obviously, if your candidate is not good enough, that is a totally different issue. I'm talking about speccing or sending perfect candidates or goddamn near perfect, like really good candidates. First of all, I don't think any recruiter should be representing a subpar candidate. Like never. Like, no, you should have a standard that you never go below. Like you should never be trying to sell a pig with some lipstick on it, right? You shouldn't be doing that. You should be selling somewhat of a gem. Maybe it's a little rough on the edges. Maybe it's not a perfect diamond, but it's got to be somewhat decent. Like it's got to be baseline acceptable, right? So assuming you're sending a baseline acceptable / decent candidate, the response rate from an actual hiring manager that is serious about hiring is going to be within 1 day to 2 days to a week at maximum. And even if it is at a week response rate, their response should be, I'm so sorry, I've been delayed. We've been extremely busy. Definitely want to interview this candidate. When are they available? When they're starting to get all nitpicky, back to that first example, here's another issue with clients getting nitpicky, which is another problem. Oh, this candidate needs to be this. This candidate needs to be that. This candidate needs to be this. After 2 submits, where that's the response, where it's just like, well, this, blah, 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 right? Call them out. We need to have a client call. We need to go over the spec. Why are we not on the same page? Why is this the case? I've done everything you asked me to. The candidate looks exactly as we discussed. Why now? Brown cow. Why now all the nitpicky this and that? You literally told me yesterday you were okay with X, and today I got you a candidate with X, and now you're not okay. obviously we're going to deliver in a very friendly, consultative manner. But the information and the energy is very much still there. They know that you're not a dummy that's just going to sit there and send them candidates till the end of time. No, thank you. I would prefer not to be that idiot. I'm a chump, but not that big of a chump, right? So at a certain point, you need to call them out by getting them on the call and going through the spec again. Hold on. Where is the disconnect? How's your week? All that small talk, blah, 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 blah. But then you got to get to business. Why are we wasting our time here? Why have I spent, 30 hours doing this, churning out the best profiles, and you got a problem with this, you got a problem with this, you got a problem with this? Why are these issues, right? Consulting, working with them through it. So that's the client side, right? You do have to start recognizing when they're showing you signs of buying weakness. You need to recognize those red flags and you need to cut it off right at the knees. You will not catch me submitting candidates for 5 months with no placement. That ain't going to happen. That's not going to happen, right? Like, I'm making a placement within 3 submits. That is how good your candidate quality should be, by the way, right? I'm making a placement, everything all else being equal. If those 3 submits did not give me a placement, it's a you issue. It's not a me issue. It's not a I can't find good enough candidates issue, because that's not an issue I have. The issue I have is, why aren't you buying? That's the problem. And I need to call that out and I need to find that out. So that's why candidate quality is really important, which is our next C. But before I even get to that C, I want to finish up this C, changing mind. On the candidate side of things, candidates can change mind too. And yes, like I said, you can't guard against it 100% of the time because none of us are freaking psychics. But there are tactical ways that you can figure it out, which is repetition. This is why I keep saying repetition. You should not be having 5-minute catch-up calls with your candidate. Your catch-up calls should be 20 to 40 minutes long. That is how long you should be speaking to live, active, maybe will be placed candidates. Every call should be a long ass call because there could be a dropper risk in there that you have not unearthed because you hopped off the phone in 5 minutes. How the hell are you supposed to cover some unspoken, hidden, secretive deal killer if you're off the phone in 5 minutes? You need to dig it out of them. How's your week? How's work? How's life? What's going on with your manager? What's happening at work? Talk about that until you're blue in the face, until that part, a baseline, what's going on. Not just, hey, how did the interview go? Oh, good. Interview, good. Okay, next step. Okay, great. You don't know what is going on in their life, in their work. So how can you just move on to the next stage of the interview? No. Like, that is exactly how you get to offer stage with no idea that the candidate is going to pull the rug right out of you. That is exactly what's going to happen because you don't know what has changed in their life since the last time or the first time that you talked about the topic, right? So candidates changing mind is very easy to see. And you do it because you address it every single call. How are you feeling about this particular role? I know it's a little challenging. I know, what did you think of the hiring manager? Go get into it super deep. If you don't like this, take it away from them. If you don't like this particular job, I could understand. I can see the downside, namely this, namely that. How do you feel about that? Test them, right? Lead them down a path and see if they'll take the bait, right? Test them out. Make sure you are gauging their interest every single time, not just like taking their word for it. Oh, good. Okay, let's go next step. Okay. No, it's not that simple. The interview could have gone good, but work is going even gooder. That's a problem. All of a sudden, things at work are getting much better. Big issue, big doo-doo. Not good. Bad problem for us. We don't want that to happen. Obviously, we want our candidate to be happy. But if that's the case, pull them out of process. If things are doing great at work, if all of a sudden there's no pain point, if you're happy dandy again, let me pull you out of process. I don't want us to get to offer stage with you telling me, things got really, fixed at work. I think I'm going to stay. I'm not playing that game, and neither should you be doing that. It's a waste of your own time. It's a waste of my time. It ruins the goodwill that we have with the client community. So let's pull you out of process. Always take it away. Taking it away is one of the best strategic and actual logical moves that you should absolutely be doing a lot of the time. Like half of my job is taking it away. It's like half of my job. It's like, why leave? Why leave? Why leave? Take it away. Take it away. Don't try to sell them to take the job. This is exactly how the deal, like this is how you get bamboozled. I'll tell you that, right? I will tell you, like you take it away because someone's serious about buying, they will buy 9 times out of 10. Obviously, there are times where you have to sell to a passive candidate. But I'm saying in general, if they're like not telling you enough information, take it away and test them, test their interest. All right. The fourth one I already talked about, candidate quality. That's a deal killer. If all of a sudden you're representing candidates that you're just lightly talking to, dusting off and sending them out to the ether, likely you will see a very low hit rate because your candidate quality is not stringent enough. Like your candidate has to be really solid. Like a lot of things I talked about earlier only works if you have amazing candidate quality. If you don't have amazing candidate quality, as in the candidate is a little less experienced than they should be, it's a little more hoppy than they should be, doesn't really have the required experience, is a transitionary professional, that is not a very good submit. If a client says to you, I want an experienced accountant, that's what they want. They don't want someone who's coming out of finance and wants to get into accounting, right? They want that bang on target sniper hit. Right? So candidate quality is a big deal killer, whether it's right off the bat where the client's just like, ew, no thanks, or halfway through, they're like, Don, you didn't even do a good job of interviewing candidate. Like they lack this experience. They lack that experience. They haven't done this. They haven't done that. And plus they're weird. They have a bad personality. They're rude. They're being odd. This is why when you look at a candidate, you can't even just look at them from a technical basis. Because a technical basis, they might be hitting it all on the page. Good school, good background, right salary, good experience, blah, blah, blah. You talk to them, the total a-hole. After 2 hours of engaging with this person, you're just like, oh my God, I can't stand them. You have to make the call at the time. Should you represent a candidate or not? Do you have alternatives? Do you have substitutes? I've told this story many times. I've had very few times in my life where I have had to work with candidates that I truly dislike. Very few times in my life. I can literally count them on one hand. Literally, in 10 years of doing recruiting, there's been 5 potential placements that I've made with candidates that I've genuinely disliked. And in those situations, it was like extreme candidate dryness. Extreme. As in like there were absolutely no other alternatives. None. Like not a single, like one of them was like a endocrinologist board certified in the Philadelphia area. Tell me, how many of those people do you think have that experience who have also worked at a pharmaceutical company? I mean, that is how limiting I had in terms of like candidate availability in that geographical area. There were 2 candidates and one of them wouldn't go for it. So I had to put up with the second one. That was not because I wanted to. It wasn't because I loved the candidate. It's because I literally had no choice. If the other candidate would have gone for it, I would have 100% backed her. I would have 100% been like, this is the girl you need to hire. That other dude, crazy nut job behind the scenes. But because I didn't have that, we only could deal with what we could have dealt with. And the client, I cannot make that call for them. The client has to decide if that's a profile and personality that they're willing to take. And at the end, they took him and he worked there for a few years. Like, what are you going to do? You cannot be the judge, jury, and executioner. You can only deal with the market as it is and work your way through that, right? You can't put your ego above the candidates and clients available. You see what I mean? Like you just have to deal with whatever the market is giving you. And if there is not any alternatives, you're just going to have to put up with it. But regardless, the candidate quality was bang on target, right? The candidate quality, hands down, has to be on the technical basis, 100% or more or less what they want. If they're less than what the client wants on a technical basis, the candidate has to make up for it in spades with their personality, right? Or vice versa, right? So this is kind of like how it works. Like you can make a case for a really awesome person who isn't perfect. You can still take the risk and try to represent them. And you can also take the risk of representing someone who's perfect with personality issues. Like both things can happen. But 9 times out of 10, hopefully you're just working with run-of-the-mill, great technical background, and also great personality, right? The candidate quality, all of these things matter, and you have to look at it holistically and within context of the candidate market, the rec, everything that exists at the time that you're conducting the search. So candidate quality is a big deal killer. I've talked to recruiters. I've seen recruiters talk about their hit rate, and your hit rate should really be 9 out of 10. And I know that's very extreme, but that's the standard at which I operate. Like 9 out of 10 candidates, if not 10 out of 10 candidates, should be requested for interview, at least from one or two of your clients that you submit them to. So let's say you submit them to 5 clients. At least one of them, 10 times out of 10, should go for it. Right? That's like a baseline candidate quality indicator that you're on the right track. That sure, 4 out of 5 clients didn't go for it, but at least one did. That's not great. It should be 5 out of 5 clients want to talk to 9 out of your 10 candidates, right? That's kind of like candidate quality. You're kicking ass, right? That's exactly what you want. But if you're not there, then you need to work your way up. You need to start making sure that your ratios are getting higher and higher in terms of hit rate. I actually saw a few years ago someone comment on my post talking about contingent recruiting. And he was basically one of those sham scam artists who like to sell, oh, just do retained. Let me teach you how to do retained. Pay me $5,000. I'll teach you how to do retained. And this guy was literally like, his whole shtick is like, don't ever do contingent. Contingent is for losers. Only you should be doing retained, which is not true. Like I build 700 plus, 740 plus, 600 plus, 500 plus, mostly on contingent. And it's fast. It's easy. It's go, go, go. Retainers take forever to sign off on. And sometimes it kills your deal even before it starts, right? So don't get me started on retained versus contingent. But what he said was, oh, you know what? Your hit rate, considering contingent hit rates, are 25%. I was like, in what world? In what world is a contingent hit rate acceptable at 20%? As in, like, you submit 1 out of 5 candidates are getting interviewed. That means you are terrible at candidate quality. Like, that's insane to me that you'd even say that out loud. You should be ashamed of saying, oh, 20% hit rate, 25% hit rate. I've never been at 25 or 20% hit rate in my life, like ever. Like that is a terrible hit rate. That means 80% or 75% of your submits are going into the trash can. Shame on you. Shame on you. No shit, you're not doing any placements as a contingent recruiter at that hit rate. You know what I mean? So I think it's really important to understand the importance of candidate quality. Your hit rate has to be 75 to 80% to even be worth staying in business. Otherwise, find another job, go do something else. Like you can't be 5 years in the recruitment game hitting at 30%, 40%. It's got to be at 80, 75, maybe 90, 95, right? That's when all of your time is being rewarded in money. That's how it works, right? The better you are, the more you make. And this is how it works. This is how the top billers bill $800,000 a year, because 90% of their work is being rewarded. They're not wasting a lot of time that goes into the shitter, right? So that's another point. Now we're almost towards the end. We have 2 more C's. One is 5. Candidate relationship. Okay. So candidate relationship is a big deal killer. And the reason why it's a big deal killer is because the candidate does not tell you what they need to tell you because they don't care about you. And this has happened before to me. I have very low droppers. I really have 10 years in recruiting. I have less than on my 2 hands droppers, literally. Like, I don't even know. Like personally, my dropper rate in my first recruitment job, 5 years, I had 2 droppers. One of my droppers that time frame, she and I were more transactional. She and I, even though I went out to physically meet her, she never took the time to meet me. I'll never forget her name. I know her first and last name. I will never forget it. And I remember pitching her on meeting me. Like I met all my candidates in the past. Like honestly, I was trekking, driving long distances to meet candidates and clients. I mean, I really hustled at the outstart of my career. And obviously, when I started DG Recruit, I did a lot of that. Nowadays, I really take it easy. But in the beginning of my career, I really was hustling, hauling ass. And my candidate, no matter how many times I pitched her to meet with me, lunches, coffees, free on the house, wherever you like, steakhouse, coffees, wherever you want, whenever you want. You want 7 p.m. on a Tuesday? I'm there. You want, 6 a.m. on a Thursday? I'll be there. No, she could not squeeze a minute of her time to meet with me. Red flag central. Red flag. Either way, I went through it. I got her the job offer at J&J, no less. Like one of the best pharmaceutical companies in the world. She was my first placement at J&J. And she dropped day before she's supposed to start a job. Literally Sunday night before Monday, she sends an email to the client, not to me, to the client. Hi, I'm not going to take this job. She ended up going to Azi, like another pharmaceutical company. They tended to offer her more. She totally shopped my offer to Azi. Anyways, so my point here is that, do you see this? Like, because we didn't have the social contract in place. So much of recruiting is off of goodwill and social contractuality. Because remember what I told you earlier about exclusivity? None of that is binding. It's not binding. Like, I can't sue them. I don't even make them sign an exclusivity contract. I know some recruiters that are like, sign this exclusivity contract. I certainly was trained that way. Like, my boss would say, Don, go and have this candidate sign the exclusivity contract. Kind of think about it like buyer's agent, right? For realtors. Buyer's agent, I mean, that's a federally mandated like business, regulated business. Agency recruiting, headhunting, we don't actually have that federal regulation that allows for buyer's agent, seller's agent. We don't really have that equivalent in recruitment. But some recruiters try to scare the candidate, and they create this like serious looking document with their like letterhead. And they're like, sign the exclusivity agreement that the next 4 weeks you won't talk to other recruiters. I think that's cheesy. I kind of think it's cheesy. So I've never done it. Like, my boss told me to do it in the past, and I was just like, what a waste of time. And I like the social contract, right? It's almost like I'm testing you. I'm leaving you to be a good person of your own accord versus forcing you to be a good person. I think there's a nuance in that. When I build relationships with people and they really, really like me, they want me to win. They want me to profit off of them. They want me to earn money. They're on my side. We're on a same team. So from the candidate's perspective. So I'm not trying to force them or scare them or distance them by creating a contract, a physical, real contract. What I like to do is create the social contract. Is like, we're buddies now. We're friends now. That's a pretty sacred bond. Like, most people wouldn't screw over their friend, like 9 times out of 10. And if they are going to screw over their friend, they're going to bite the bullet, call up their friend, and tell the friend exactly how they're going to screw the friend over. And I would prefer that. And I tell candidates, I educate them on that cadence from the first call, is that if you choose to take another job or change your mind at any point in the process, I want you to tell me, and I will be happy to cut you loose. Happy. I want you to succeed. I want you to be happy, whether that's through me or not through me. Ideally through me, because that would be great. I get paid. This is how I make my living. But if not through me, I'll still be happy for you. You see what I mean? So that social contract is oftentimes much stronger than just, hey, by the way, I only work exclusively with candidates. Here's the document, sign it or else don't talk to me. Social contracts go a long way. And that's what I mean by candidate relationship. Do you genuinely have a real relationship with your candidates that they will tell you when the deal is going to be killed off so that you at least have a moment to try to make it work? Because going back to that example of that lady who screwed me over, had she just communicated with me and had a real relationship with me, had I managed to create that with her, she could have shopped that offer to me, and I could have shopped that offer to my client, at least giving them a chance to fight before losing. What she did was take that opportunity even away from us at all to try, right? So it sucks not even having that opportunity, because had she just given me the news, I could have tried at least to influence my client to cough up more money, to be more competitive to that other offer. Right? There's so many strategic plays that had people just been honest, we could have won still. We still could have won, right? So that's the sad part, is that candidates don't know that. They don't know how powerful headhunters are and what we can do in the process to make it happen, right? Okay. So number 6, the last C that is a deal killer is cost. Cost. However you want to say it, it's cost. Cost is a big deal killer. Is if you can't figure out from day one what your client's appetite is, what your candidate's appetite is, you end up wasting a lot of time. As in, you submitted a candidate that ultimately wanted a lot more money than what the client was willing to offer, or the client was willing to offer strictly X amount, and your candidate is changing their mind or already came to the table wanting a lot more. Cost is easy to control, actually. I think the last C, in terms of deal killers, cost is the easiest thing to control because you have so much time to work around cost. You have a lot of time to work the candidate down through a number of factors, right? Like, hey, the market is awful. Hey, look at comparable salaries. They're dropping because layoffs are increasing, right? Cost is really easy to evidence because cost is never truly that far out of the median. Like nowadays, it's rare to find clients that are like 60% below market value. It's like impossible to see that. And clients like that don't tend to work with headhunters because they're too cheap. They're not willing to pay the fee. But they're basically underpaying their own staff, let alone having the budget to pay a headhunter, right? So the odds of you finding a client that is truly destitute with like really strict financial bans is very slim. By the time they want to work with a recruiter, there is a lot of flexibility. It's like recruitment is a pay-to-play game. Only rich clients can afford the service. The other ones that can't afford it, DIY it. They use their own, TA, or they use cheap recruiters from other countries, or they use RPO, or they, use an MSP, whatever. That's not your customer. Like you shouldn't even be going after that business. Like, ew. If you're a cheap, destitute client, like, ew. No, thank you. Like, I don't need you in my mix. So first of all, I shouldn't be even working with clients that are like totally constrictive, right? You should work with clients that are like, you know what, ideally, I'd like to pay this range. But if you get me the perfect candidate, again, to be discussed on the initial intake client call. Educate the client. Hey, Mr. Mrs. Client, I know that your expectation is 140, totally reasonable. And probably in 2011, that would have been a good number. But in 2024, 140, you're at about 30% of the whole spectrum of cost. 75th percentile, the majority of the rates of people moving jobs, you're likely to get movement around 160. Test the client from the first call. See if they have an appetite. If they're like, hey, you know what? That's good to know. I'll talk to my boss about it and I'll get back to you. If they're like, absolutely not, we would never be able to afford that, then you're just going to tell them, hey, would you be comfortable with a lower experienced person? Because unfortunately, you need to be open-minded to that because 140, people already earning 140 where they're at. So to leave, they're not going to just take 140 to leave. Very, very few people take lateral moves, right? So likely you're going to get someone more junior who's going to move up to 140 from 120. How does that sound? Test the client from the first call around cost. If they're too far out of sanity, if they're too far out of range, immediately tell them, I'm sorry, I can't take this rec. This rec is not good enough. It does not fulfill real market conditions. Unfortunately, I cannot place this job. If you were to tell me that you have cost flexibility up to 180, we're talking business. If you don't have that flexibility, I'm telling you now that you're better off just sourcing on your own, hopefully finding someone who's unemployed and like try to get them for as cheap as you can. But a good candidate that I'm going to headhunt from your competitor will absolutely not go for this price. Be direct. Tell them that information up front. Test them up front. Don't wait till deal closing to be like, wow, you can't afford my candidate, right? Same thing on the candidate side. Hey, look, listen, if other candidates are willing to take 30K less than you, should you even move? Because that's very real. Is we could get to the end of process and you're being overpaid where you currently are. And my new client is better company, better this, better that, but they're not going to pay that high base that you have now because you've gone through that with legacy being there so long. You're not going to get that on the market when you move jobs because you're kind of getting overpaid. Test, test, test. When you test, you'll get your answer the way that they will tell you the actual truth. Make it real. Put everything in really real terms so that the candidate or the client can just respond to you and tell you what you need to know. Okay, so those are the 6 deal killers. Let's go over them one more time. Counter offer, competing offer, changing mind, candidate quality, candidate relationship issues, and lastly, cost. I hope these 6 deal killers are something you'll watch out for on every single call from intake to closing.